Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey folks,
Hi there.
good morning or good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry about my weird lighting today. There we go. So we have a small agenda today. In fact, not much on there at all. If anybody has things that they in particular want to talk about, feel free to add. Um, let's see. Otherwise, I just posted in the latest, the link there. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me pause. All right, there we go. So we are recording. Welcome to the first meeting of February 2024 for the Platforms Working Group in CNCF. I just posted into the chat a second ago the agenda. We don't have a ton to talk about today. Usually we start if somebody is new, wants to introduce themselves, tell us what your interest is in here. We'll open the floor up for a minute. Don't really see anyone new, so I think that I'll pause. I'll stop there, and I think we have everybody that I think we all have met before or watched previous meetings, I guess, to see people's interests. So switching on from that, there's two items on the agenda today. The first one is the platform as a product framework, which Michael and Dominique have been leading a lot of work on. Michael and Dominique, do you want to discuss anything about that here? How things are going? Any questions? Anything that we should be discussing together?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Dominic and I put together a new epic with related issues that should cover most of the work that still needs to be done. I just posted it in the chat. I would say, take a look at it in your own time in more detail and see where you'd like to contribute. It covers everything from finalizing this version of the script that we have for platform builders to just pave the way to do like one iteration of getting the script out there in the leanest possible process that would enable anybody to pick up that script and then start interviewing with it, just to get things going. Let's see. What else is worth mentioning? So if you take a look at the tickets, it covers, like finalizing that script, putting together some best practices so we can level set all of the people who are interested in interviewing, depending on their experience,
Can you share
they'll
the
start
ticket while we talk through it?
It's in the chat. I'll post it in the platforms group as well.
I just meant also sharing your screen so people have
Oh,
something
yeah,
to
I always
visualize.
forget. All right, yeah, good call. As much as I trying to just describe it. Okay, can you guys see? Wrong
Yes.
screen. Share screen. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So the tickets that Dominic and I put together just essentially contextualizes the things we've been working on and makes it a little more clear in terms of why we're doing them, some of the important considerations for each of the pieces of work, and then what the expected outcomes should be. So for example, we have a draft of this that we have two kind of mock iterations on internally. At this point, we need to clean up some finalized version that could be picked up by anybody and allow them to essentially recruit out of their own network, just lead like the easiest path to actually starting this, like getting this going in a meaningful way so people can just start interviewing. And then we need to do a little work on the kind of process and mechanics of interviewing, signing up people who want to interview, qualifying their experience so we can figure out, if you're good to lead on the interview, if you don't have any experience but you're interested and you might be the second interviewer, or if you really don't know what interviewing is all about, but you're interested and you can be kind of a fly on the wall following that observe, support, lead model. So that everybody who is interested can participate in some meaningful way and follow that path. And a guide on best practices, once again, to level set everybody depending on, this, no matter like what their level of experience is, on how to not ask leading questions, how to, pull on the thread of interesting insights that come out in an open kind of interview structure, including a protocol on how you conduct the interview itself, introducing, what is the purpose of it? What are we doing with your data? Running through the privacy considerations, running through how long it will take, just kind of fundamentals of running an interview. And there's a data collection and synthesis ticket. There's a conversation that still needs to be had around getting an appropriate tool, if we can, like Dovetail or Condense, to make it a lot easier for us to process the raw data and tease out meaningful insights as this decentralized kind of group of contributors without stepping on each other's toes or, to limit kind of redundancy in the work of people trying to review the same piece of data. And specific issue just for a lead up to KubeCon, which is how can we evangelize for this work at that event? Can we create like a handful of questions that we can collect some data on so we can publicize some early kind of insights as another way to kind of evangelize for the product, platform as a product effort. And then, putting together a plan as the outcome, like what would that actually look like? What would we be asking? How would we run it at the conference? So one thing I would ask is, read through this, comment on them, and also, think about which kind of tickets you'd be interested in contributing to and what that would look like. At this point, I think it would be nice to have at least people who want to own some of the work and facilitate actually getting to those outcomes instead of having just a handful of people in the middle of everything. Marsh.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, great. Nice to see this coming together. I was uncertain the role that KubeCon plays. That's a recruiting place where recruiting and interviews are going to happen in bulk there, but we're also going to do other interviews outside of KubeCon. Is that the plan? Did I understand it right?
So the main effort is, proper kind of 45-minute interviews inside of companies, starting with platform builders, then outside of the tickets here, just the path of least resistance, then moving to consumers in those same companies. And if the platform builders can't answer the business side objective or questions, it's one thing we learned from the mock interviews. Even if we talk to very senior platform engineers, some questions they just can't answer because that's not where they operate. At KubeCon itself, it's more like recruiting people we can interview, recruiting people that want to contribute to the project. And then also, if we're already there, we have the opportunity to maybe ask just a handful of questions around kind of product and platform. We don't have a lot of time with people, right? It's very fleeting conversations. So can we capture that in some meaningful way as a means of maybe writing a blog about it or just evangelizing the overall project, but with like a few insights that might interest people, just to give them a taste of what this is about.
Cool. Yeah, probably also if enough of us are there to be able to talk about the process and sort of share techniques and coordinate.
Exactly.
Cool. And then yeah, a couple other questions. Sorry, David. I'll cede you in a second. Yeah, GDPR requirement. I'm not familiar with how that applies to interviewing directly, but I think what you touched on with the privacy considerations that you would explain during the interview preamble, is that where that would be covered?
So it's something that once we figure out what it looks like and where we land with it, we need to explain it obviously in a standardized way to every person that's being interviewed,
Right.
so they understand what's happening with their data and what's being shared. Part of it is in terms of like the actual integrity of the interview itself. People will be more or less candid if they think everything's going to be publicized or it's not what they signed up for. So how are we going to handle that? And then there's just the strictures kind of GDPR. We're doing this in this decentralized way with a lot of people moving in and out. Who's actually going to look at the raw data? How do we anonymize it? When do we need to do that? Like the actual method and practices of data collection and storage.
Cool. Thanks. David?
I think in general we had a short discussion if we should create a data, protection GDPR story in itself. But I think it's inherently a part of every story that we have on that list, right? How do we handle the data protection around not just the collection, but also on the recruiting and stuff like that?
Cool. Thank you.
David.
So I was just putting my hand up. I've been talking to Michael and Dominic offline. I will volunteer to do the KubeCon stuff since I've been interested in that from when it first came up. And I've also started writing up that interviewer guide. But yeah, anyone who wants to help with those things, get in touch. I'm particularly motivated because I'm getting close to booking, and as an offshoot of this, maybe as a third topic, I'd like to know more about the logistics of KubeCon, sort of acting on behalf of, right, working group as opposed to just attendee.
Yes, I think to add to David, I would be there in person as well. So would like to take up some tasks around the booth. I remember last time, we had a tag app delivery group in Chicago and Josh was the one driving that. So I just I just asked, in the GitHub issue as well, if we are having that booth this time as well. Then, accordingly we can plan to, Michael spoke about, evangelizing or talking about the interviews there or getting some people on the booth, pre-booking sort of, that we tell them that, hey, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, between 3 to 5, we have the slots. If you are interested, you can come by the booth and we could drive it. Obviously this would need some, brainstorming, but in short, I'll be there on ground to help out in whatever way it's required if you have the booth.
Yeah, that's awesome. There is going to be, so Leanne Lee and Thomas Schutz are leading the work to get the booth arranged, and we should have a booth there. We'll have to find out from them exactly what the time slots are, but I'll keep you all updated on, and I can write into that issue. There is an issue actually open in the repo also, just a general issue about KubeCon plans. So you can follow that too, but I'll try to keep this group updated as those get solidified.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you think about this effort and the kind of pieces of it, and as they come together, if you have any particular interest, like David, in kind of owning the facilitation of any one of these to get to those outcomes, that would be great.
And Michael, what's your plan for starting to get the interviews going time-wise?
So I think we can get a finalized, or at least the iteration of a draft that we can kind of take to the interviews this week. And then it's really, within this, let's say, smaller group of people who've been showing up and are more aware of this work, like who've already said they want to interview and they have people that they're just ready to go with. Let's start there. Like really, like what's the quickest path to just do more cycles of this interview? And so in order to facilitate that, it's at least having some sense of protocol of the day, that draft, and then how are we going to treat that data? At the very least, what we want is a complete transcript, right? So whoever interviews is responsible for producing that transcript. They might record a video and then turn that into a transcript. But I think as like a raw artifact that we can work off of on the synthesis part, a complete transcript with any notes that the interviewers make on top of it around their interpretations or insights throughout the interview itself. So I think maybe, it makes sense to maybe have like a shorter punch list of like, how do we get this out, immediately for anybody who's interested in running these like next week. And then behind that will be the longer tail of signing up people who want to interview, coordinating between different types of interviewers based on their experience level, matching them with people in companies to interview if they already don't have a network that they feel comfortable to go to. But there's no reason to wait for all of that to happen before we just roll with what we have. At least that's that take on it, so we don't keep dragging our feet.
Maybe as a quick poll, if people would throw up their hands if they had intentions to interview, like if they had people to interview and plans to interview. If I can figure out how to.
Oh yeah, throw up hands. There you go, like that.
Yeah. Wave if you're on a Mac.
Sorry, I'm a newbie, so I'm a little lost on the context a little bit. But I think from what I'm hearing, love to get involved however possible.
Sure.
Great.
Welcome.
Yeah, for anybody on this call who's interested in interviewing, maybe just let's start with just like message in the I'll start a little thread in the platform Slack channel, and maybe we'll just start collecting some names there just to start keeping track of interviews or interviewers.
Should we take this up? You mentioned the platforms. Should we take this opportunity to like archive or do something with the platform as a product channel? Not to bring up like random topics, but
I think at this point we don't need it. I think the work is now just happening in the main channel.
Especially for people who are somewhat new, they might get confused by.
Is that something anybody can do? Let's see. Or Josh, do you have permissions for it?
Didn't you create a channel?
Oh, did I? Yes, I probably did. That means I control it. Yes. Okay, I will do that. Okay. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks for reminding me of the obvious things. Is there anything else top of mind while we're all here?
I think the interesting bit with that epic is besides the synthesis, we can work on everything in parallel. So absolutely feel free to push any topic in our now only platforms channel, where you want to work with or where you want to lead, and then we can asynchronously work in those threads to get some roadmaps ahead on how we can fulfill the outcomes that are listed there. As we already said, I think for the getting into the first interviews, we don't need to have everything in a perfect state, but get a minimum level on confidence where we can then all sit together and say, all right, from now on, the interview should be easygoing.
I think somebody mentioned this in one of the GitHub issues that for the KubeCon format, we may want to consider an optimized, like consistent 20-minute version because people are going to want to go to talks and, like short attention spans at KubeCon in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the KubeCon thing was for me again a chance to throw in the survey question.
Yeah.
And to get Michael used that perfect form of a pocket-sized interview that we
Yeah.
could do there. I
Yep.
think that's definitely, talking about the scope and the exact outcome that we want from KubeCon, maybe with a blog post or something, which can also help us make people aware of the research we're doing and the recruiting that we aim for. That's definitely something we can talk within the scope. If you have more ideas on what we can do on KubeCon, definitely put it into the ticket.
Yeah, if you post a blog post, like we could post it first on the tags, blog, but we could also have it syndicated to the CNCF blog. That might help, and we can advertise it further that way.
So I'm going to ask probably a question that may be a little ignorant, but I hope that's okay. So are these basically, Brian, are these items that are helping us curate what basically we intend to do at KubeCon?
Yeah. So Rahibi, you might want to just introduce yourself in general.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think you joined a little late.
Yeah, let me do that. My name is Rahib Amin, and I'm a little sick today, but let me show you my sick face a little bit. I am Rahib Amin. I actually was previously on the market side as a technical product manager. Worked pretty closely with a lot of folks around platform as a product and some of the technical product management back there. I've recently come onto the service line under the platform engineering. My experience is largely around basically APIs as a product, API strategy. Have helped lots of organizations determine how to build a strategy around those APIs and kind of how to deliver them as products, and lots of experience there, and have lots of interest in kind of getting my feet wet and doing some public speaking, and so lots of interest in that kind of thing as well. But yeah, that's a little short intro on me.
Lovely.
Welcome.
To give you a short update on or a short overview on the epic itself, basically it is a whole research that we're looking at, based up on the loosely based up on the platform engineering maturity model that we created within this group. And it is focusing on some hypotheses and assumptions that we had around the success of platform engineering when it is managed as a product. We want to do some basic interviews with platform builders to prove those assumptions that we had, and with that, basically showcase that, how successful platform builders are managing their platforms as a product. The KubeCon is just one aspect, one event that we can use to facilitate, this research. That's the one story on the bottom of that work issues list here.
I see.
Yeah. So if you are just interested in, how can we use KubeCon to drive this topic, or how can we drive this topic on KubeCon in general, then please absolutely feel free to participate in that linked issue here. But the overall topic, the whole research is in a broader scope than just for KubeCon itself.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dominic, so much for that context.
All right. If there are no further questions to the platform topic, I would say we post it into the platform's channel again, the link. Oh, Michael already did that. Perfect. And then, yeah, we just do the work on it asynchronously. and see if we need any follow-ups or anything like that. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you all. Very cool stuff. Okay, so the next item on our agenda for today is to discuss the platform glossary, a number of terms and ideas around platform engineering, and Marsh has been leading that work. Marsh, do you want to chime
Yep.
in here?
I think I'm sharing my screen too. Just there's a PR that's been out for a little bit. It's languished a little. Abby gave it a review and identified one thing that we'd missed in our planning, which is that there's a challenge. There is a published version of the glossary already, and it's at least partially translated into other languages. And so there are 3 languages that I think are in this. Yeah, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. And there is no clear process guidance around what we do in this situation. So it seems to me that the appropriate step is to publish the English version and leave the others in V1. Although it gets messy, right? Because actually the Japanese version hasn't been translated; it's all in English. So that one seems easy enough to. You know, the Korean version has headings translated. If anyone speaks Korean or is able to help with that, great. I don't know what the process here. We just seem to be hung up in that. So I think there are 2 real problems. One is how do we get the English version through its review? And I'm not clear on how that process goes from here. We seem stuck. And the second piece is what do we do about this process challenge of publishing the translated versions? I'm not aware that there's any work that's blocking that I could be doing on this, and so guidance from Josh or Robert and Abby's jumped into would be great.
Yeah,
What
I
next?
would say for the other translations, the only thing is we don't want to lose the fact that we need to translate them. So maybe if we just open issues, like translate,
Okay.
updated glossary. I don't think we want to block on having them translated because it'll be asynchronous when people can come in and translate. Maybe we can put out some sort of message either in the chat or here. A blog post might be a bit much, saying that we've updated the glossary and we're looking for translators always, or so we can mention that.
Okay. That's good. Thanks. That's actionable. I can definitely open issues for translation. That feels like a natural response to the work it's tracked.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
And we are going to work on the translation in French soon. When it's merged, we are going to work on it.
Hey, that's awesome. Great. Thanks, Antoine. I think that's all I have here.
And your other question, Marsh, I didn't answer your other one.
Oh yeah, right.
Either of us, I mean, I can approve it, and
Okay.
Robert, you probably can too, and Abby, well, I think Abby should be able to. But we want to make sure that it has the amount of reviews that you are happy with, I guess. So I could take a look late, in the next couple days and put in my review if there's anything else.
Okay.
Do you think it's ready to merge? Everyone's had a chance, so.
Yeah, I think the question is, have people just not been able to get to it and look at it? But we got feedback along the way. We got one last edition while we've been stuck in this PR review. David made a great suggestion that we consider also mentioning that platform users may be part of the users of the platform. Like people building the platform will also depend on the platform. So that's been merged in. But the point here is less about what is missing from the glossary in terms of terms we might define. We're holding that information, that kind of work for V3. This is what can we do to support the platform maturity model and the white paper, since the glossary was published before the maturity model and there was some cleanup that was necessary. And so really this was let's get the house in order and then think about whether there are things like platform operators that might need to be defined as well. It also does a better job linking back to the CNCF has its own glossary that's a higher level scope than this. This is specific to platforms. And so, referring out to that as well. I think what we have here should be uncontroversial, but if you see things that need to be rethought, please ping me directly or comment on the PR would be great. Cool. I think I know how to move forward from here. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so taking a look at the agenda, it's still, Nobody has added anything else. So is there any other topics that folks want to bring up? Otherwise, we're about at the end.
Yes, I have some topics about Glossary v3 because we had some discussions. I don't remember which channel it was. Yes, it was in the Backstack channel. We were discussing about some vocabulary to define some component because technical component, I mean, because I was calling something like the meta orchestrator, and on Backstack they are calling it the scaffold platform. So I was thinking maybe we need some additional glossary on some, reference architectures designs that we have like in GNU. So there are some things more technical related than just organizational related as currently. Currently, it's a bit focused on organizational vocabulary, glossary. So I think I'm going to propose a few things if someone is willing to join the exchange we have about it.
I am interested in that because it's from one perspective, like what we say as the platform group, yes, we've been focused on a lot of socio-technical stuff, but it also makes sense to describe logical components of a platform that go a bit above what the Canoe team and these other products are, or reference architectures, so that we provide a way for them to collaborate, right? What are you building? What are you calling a pipeline? What are you calling this or that runtime component? And try and keep it a little bit more neutral and, also get away from it being completely Kubernetes centric. If you let it go off to the technical details, it'll probably dive right into that stuff. So if
Okay.
you want to get in touch offline, I'd be happy to chat more about it.
Yes, because that was my main issue when I was trying to do some architectural schema for my company, and the main issue I had was about what I would call the capability operator itself, the global component that's going to provide your capability, and itself it's using maybe operators. For example, for my database capability, I'm going to use CNPG operator. But if I use the term itself operator, it could be confusing. So how are we going to call it? I think it will be a good work for the working group to define those kind of glossary.
In general, I feel these are technical implementation details. Like, for example, if we define a name for an orchestrator, we somehow put in the assumption that a successful platform, well, in quotation marks, a successful platform has something like an orchestrator in it, which is an implementation detail that we deliberately didn't want to take in, right?
You're saying we're kind of making a statement that a platform needs an orchestrator, and we don't necessarily want to say that.
That's true.
Are we saying that if we define an orchestrator as a certain thing? I mean, we can still debate whether it's a requirement or just a nice to have. Or...
This is going to fill the rest of our time, I think, today. To me, look, it's an abstraction, right? In many ways, it's an orchestrator is there to normalize across different services you might want to use, and this matters. This happens whether you're dealing with app delivery and managing the primitives, or whether you're dealing with like normalizing backend payment gateways. An orchestrator may be a common enough word and broadly used enough, but I don't have a strong enough opinion, and I don't spend enough time in platform engineering.
We
land
haven't done much
informed.
to define platforms any more specifically, so I think there's a lot of different room for different kinds of platforms. And if we start defining more terminology, then people can decide, oh, the kind of platform I'm building would benefit from a cross-cloud orchestrator, right? Because that's a good pattern. Something I was kind of chatting with Marsh about before is it seems like there could be something more like a pattern language for discussing, the parts of a platform. if any of you are familiar with microservices.io, Christopher, his name just popped out of it, but has defined a really nice pattern language for microservices. And I think we could benefit from having something kind of similar with platforms. And then, the technical details of having message queues as a service, right, would be one part, but you'd still all have a common way to refer to. And then you'd have lower level components, like if this is a self-service thing with an operator, does the user provision it, or does, platform, like there's lots of different things we can get into without getting into the technical details of it, I think.
Yeah, I kind of have a point here, or a thought. I'm kind of play with the side of I kind of like the orchestrator terminology, and I do believe it's I don't think at a business level that that really implies a specification detail. Like it could simply imply that there's a set of interactions that that are being enabled in that platform world, right? That it's not a thing, but a set of and maybe orchestration is a loaded term in our world, and we should stray away from that. But what I do like about that it illustrates the interaction that's being enabled as opposed to, the thing. For example, the scaffolding.
Yeah, I really like your idea, David, with the definition of a general platform pattern. But then I would say it's something that needs a disclaimer, just like our maturity model, where we have the word that maybe not the latest maturity might not be the right maturity for you because of viability or whatever. And then it sounds like it's not necessarily something for our glossary, but it sounds like it's a really interesting, project in itself. Like here is a general definition of like how a general platform pattern can look at, like with some broad definitions that are, give enough free space for implementation details to be filled.
Kind of
I like the way you said that, Dominic.
It's kind of like orchestrators are a domain of platforms, but that we don't want to limit ourselves to all platforms have said domain, because then we limit the scope of the working group, whereas we're trying to focus on platforms as a whole, not just engineering platforms. So I like the concept of saying this is what we think it is, and it sometimes applies.
I'm wondering if what the next steps would be for after V2 is merged, if people want to propose new terms, is it maybe open a issue and a PR around that one term at a time? I'm kind of looking at you, Marsh. What do you think? Do you think we need to have a whole V3, or should we, as people want to add terms, open issues?
I don't have a strong opinion yet on this one. I think David's suggestion of a pattern language is interesting. Like, what are the kinds of things that we see? And like Dominic's point that we want to be. Actually, I think Antoine made it too. Like we don't want people to think that you must have a platform orchestrator in order to be a platform. But these are patterns that we can expect to see in different places at different times. So I don't know what the right form this is to take. I'm sure, though, with the number of informed, smart people we have in this group, we'll figure it out along the way. I don't know the answer.
Well, I'll give an opinion that we should be careful conflating glossary with any form of like implement. It's a glossary. It's a set of terms, and the way that you use those terms together would be defined elsewhere. So I would say keep the glossary, like I'm suggesting a pattern language, and that becomes a thing in of itself, and it's not the same as the glossary. And you don't want to slow down the glossary and just being able to define things for people by making it too holistic. So I would argue, but just to clarify, I would say we probably need sections. That's one of the things I'm seeing from the existing glossary is there are some terms already that aren't quite well linked to each other, even though they're related. And we should probably figure out like what sections of the glossary should be there, and maybe have a ticket or task per section or something.
Yeah, and the main example I have, you have currently in the V2 proposal portal. So it doesn't mean your platform is going to provide some portal. So it's not, we have put it in the glossary, it doesn't mean you're going to have it on your platform.
This is one of those things, though. Portal means so many things to so many people, right?
The current definition is a web-based interface.
And even that is okay. But my point is, I think maybe we don't get lost in the fact that some of these overlap with what these things mean to us. Like that may mean developer portals to us, but if to your average Joe, which I probably am more closely aligned to here than anybody else in this group, but I would say that's kind of, oh, okay, a portal, a place where I get to interact between two different dimensions, whatever that may mean. I'm not going to get lost on, do you mean developer portal? Or I don't even need to know that. And I think that implementation level detail can be kind of hidden away. And I mean, who's to say that it has to be a developer portal for it to be a portal, right? It could just be a set of API document, specification or style guides living in Confluence. That could represent the portal to said individual. So that, I guess that's kind of my point, is we could go down the rabbit hole of saying, no, we're thinking of this term because we are platform engineer focused, but I think there's so much room there. And some of these terms are, actually deliver the imagery that we're trying to convey, right, with folks that may not be platform educated.
Question is, has anybody tried to use the list of capabilities and interfaces as a form of inventory to catalog or categorize components, or even dev environments and things like that, but in practice at an organization?
We're currently working on our positioning in Giant Swarm to, go away from here's a Prometheus stack to what is the actual capability that we're delivering with that. So we're we have influenced the maturity model, but are also very influenced from the maturity model to see how we can, shape the perspective onto away from this is a bunch of components that we use to make our Kubernetes nicer to what is actually the use case that we support with different toolings.
One thing that we've done in a number of places, and we're in a consulting position, so I get the chance to get exposed to different organizations, right? And I've been really intentional about using the white paper and the list of capabilities as that categorization tool, and help the platform teams, not just the platform teams, but also we do interviews and we talk with the consumers themselves internal at the organization. It is nice, by the way, a lot of people are starting to say my users, which is really cool to see, and they mean internal users and not like outside users, but just fun anecdote. But it's interesting to walk them through and explain. It's like, okay, so portals. Let's talk about what a portal is. It's a thing that you use to access stuff.
Right.
It's related at that.
Exactly.
Give me every single example of everything that you can think of that every team uses to touch the platform, right? To interact with the platform. And we go through and we list stuff. And some things are listed in multiple different categories, like Vault, right? Vault can be a portal, even though it's a secrets management tool as well. Some people use it as a portal, but don't use it as a platform capability. Like they're not necessarily accessing it at the CI/CD level and what is it, unlocking or whatever, relocking and all that stuff. but it's interesting to get their perspective on that, and being able to define, like, okay, it's how it's used that is important. But going through and doing that inventory is a really interesting exercise. And going back to the point of even the documentation side, and in the maturity model, right, the most basic form of platform maturity is at least documentation. And a lot of folks don't understand what tools are there, what their teams are actually using, how they interact with the rest of the organization, where there's crossover, all that stuff. And going through and mapping that platform is a really, really good exercise in helping them understand the terminology and the components and what they have in place today. And so I think what is really good is that there is already a lot of good in the white paper, but as we go through it, it feels like some of the categories are too generalized, and sometimes things are difficult to fit and do some things there. But doing that inventory has been a great way to test the understanding of the end users and map that stuff back. And one thing that's also very apparent, having gone through and done this, is that we've got one diagram here, and there are still folks that still get hung up on the idea that there is one platform to rule them all. And that is very, very much not the case in many organizations, especially at scale. And we may define a data platform as a platform under the white paper model, and it will have a different collection of portals and a different collection of capabilities and different consumers and different providers in some cases as well. And so I think there's a lot of really good general terminology. Maybe the articulation of there are different types of platforms and some of those references is a good way to go. So sorry for the soapbox.
No, that's good. Colin, this is reminding me of the issue you have for a blog post about a platform of platforms, because I think is this what you're? Yeah, great. Because to me, one thing we tried to do with the glossary is to keep a definition of portal that was really broad. Like it's meant to support self-service and discovery, and to bring things together in one place. You can figure out where you would go to find these things. It could be simple, like Confluence. It could be complicated, like standing up your own Backstage. And so I think what you're getting to, Colin, here is that there are going to be different things that are each arguably portals. Platforms, and how you facilitate the journeys that software developers or data engineers or anybody in the company working are going to need to take. Did I get that right?
Really rings true for me, and the reason that I wanted to do the blog post as well is when we work with software providers, they consider the software they're packaging as a platform in many cases, and they're calling it that. And the reality is that's going to get shipped somewhere and run by somebody. And there are multiple application components, there's multiple platform capabilities, there's multiple platform interfaces that get included alongside that. And it's really difficult in some cases to help somebody understand how to articulate and I'm thinking back to product requirements at the end of the day. It's like an understanding of what components and capabilities are going to be required to run this application. What is interoperable? What can I reuse? Most basic example I can think about there is we got a lot of these tools that we deploy into Kubernetes that deploy their own Prometheus, as opposed to just reusing some existing stuff, right? Or they require a particular message bus when they could be interoperable and use a different message bus or a different MQ or something, right? And giving them a framework to articulate from a product requirement standpoint, this is how you're going to include this as part of your overall broader platform is really important to me. And I think will unlock a lot of things, because at that point it is a platform of platforms, or we have multiple platforms. And one term that I've used that's worked pretty well is this idea of a core platform. And a core platform to me is a platform that is extensible, that you can add additional capabilities, right? As you go, you can layer things on top. It goes back to me for front-end development with progressive enhancement and that kind of concept in general. But when you were talking earlier about some of that other platform stuff, it made me think about the core platform side and this concept of being able to build on top of, because I feel like a lot of platforms and platform strategies out there are very exclusive, very hands-on, like very much like we do everything for you, black box it, don't be interoperable. And I think that misses the point on what a platform should be.
Got lots of hands up. I'm gonna add. I'll jump in first. Because I want to compliment something you said there, Colin. With there are things that aren't platform specifically, but are useful to software engineering, like software standards. What are your coding standards? What are your API design standards? Like, these are things that naturally benefit from the kinds of centralization that platforms support. And so a lot of this will simply be documentation. It's what are the software development journeys that you need to support? That's thinking from the user perspective. So sorry, I'll cede the floor now. Go.
Great.
Next.
Dominic, you're on mute. I think you were next, though.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I wouldn't even limit it to requirements and what driven then by the requirements of customers or your users in that sense, your consumers. I think a lot of that whole journey on what is a capability that your platform should deliver comes also from the term of the developer experience journey, because at the end it is also like a customer journey. It is a journey that a developer does within his usual developer day, and the question of that a platform should answer is which capabilities make your life easier, and what are the different steps within a developer experience journey that a platform can automate or simplify with just documents. Because if you're just looking at what are customer requirements or consumer requirements of a platform, you usually don't come up with, hey, we just need a document where we have all of the links to the stuff that we need in our daily business. But if you look at, the developer experience and you say, hey, the biggest pain point that we currently have in the developer team is that everybody needs like a 10,000 bookmarks to work efficiently, and that's something we can release to. So I think the developer experience is a very important point there, and I think that having a bit of a set, like these are some basic capabilities that you can look at if you want to see what capabilities your platform already has and what capabilities your platform should maybe deliver to your internal team. I think that could be another big project.
As you guys are all talking, I've been thinking that too. Like, there's room for, like, the end of the first white paper is here's a list of capabilities to consider, but there's an opportunity to drill down about the composition of platforms. One thing maybe I do kind of like for the glossary, we're not going to talk about the composition, but maybe we can start a section in there like components of platforms and start to debate different pieces, at least like portal or orchestrator or operator. Maybe that's a place to start. I'm just jumping in because we're getting close to end. I know there's hands up, but maybe at least for now, if people want to PR something like orchestrator into the glossary, put it in another section, platform components, and we can debate on the issue or the PR, what it is and if this is really what we want to do. That could be a next step.
I don't know I can't see who's next. Mine is just on the top, so I don't think that necessarily means.
I believe you are, David.
Okay,
I believe
so
you are next.
I would Colin brought up an interesting point about companies that have a different definition of platform, and the company I worked for previously had quite a few people working on like cloud platforms and such, and the head of the product said the only thing that may be referred to as a platform are our product, like our billing platform or our CRM platform that we sell to customers. And so they're very particular about that. And there's a lot of crossover between internal platforms, external platforms, platform effects, network effects, and things like that. But they aren't the same thing. And in business people's minds, they may have a pretty specific definition of that. So if our glossary tries to be too general, we might start colliding with these other definitions of business platforms. Even though there's so much in common, we have to be a little bit careful about being too generic and confusing the people we're trying to educate when they go to talk to business counterparts.
Yeah, and I believe I'm next. I'll just go quickly, Colin. I've had a lot of space from the product perspective, like playing the product owner and platform product manager in organizations, and faced a lot of those direct challenges, right? And I basically just came down to a lot of what you were saying, people being focused on the thing as opposed to the interaction. The same kind of skills we learned with product, people somehow lost that, right? They're like, oh, I need a developer portal as opposed to the interaction that I need to enable. So actually was involved in writing up a blog with several folks in the market line, which never made it anywhere, but it did create a rather large mind map of kind of those concepts. And it was almost, it was crazy. You were almost walking through that diagram. So I'd love to, if I could be of any support in your efforts, love to partner with you and see if we can share some notes.
Antoine, I think you're the last one, and maybe you'll
Yes,
wrap
it's
it
going
up
to be
after that.
quick. We are going to organize the morning coffee at KubeCon Europe. So I'm going to book for 10 persons nearby the conference venue. So if you are coming, let us know. I'm going to post some things on the Slack. So let me know if you are coming, because I have to book. If we are 20 persons, I need to book more. So you are welcome to join us on a Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock to start a morning coffee together.
Oh, at 7, I really need a coffee then.
Maybe Antoine, do you want to post it in the tracking issue for KubeCon stuff?
Okay, I can indeed.
Could share it there too.
Yes, I'm working with Abby on this.
Perfect. Okay, so I think I'm not gonna open it up again. I think it's about 11 o'clock now. Thank you for that great discussion. Like I said, I think next we're gonna get the V2 in. Marsh, I'm on that. I'll get it approved in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then for next items, I think we should open up individual issues, maybe for a new section. If some of the stuff from today, I'm definitely open for someone to open an issue on that. I really like the idea of maybe drilling another level into platform composition. That could even become a paper over time. So people want to think about that, please do. Otherwise, I think we're good for today. Thank you everyone for the discussions, and we'll see you on Slack and on GitHub.
See you. Goodbye.
See ya, bye.
It's fun.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.